Hello, magical adventurers. Welcome to Fantasy Reimagined. Here fantasy stories come to life. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to join our enchanting journeys and never miss a new adventure. See you in the realms of wonder. In the central area of Bigo Star, Kira was imagining how to avenge Sun Tian for the harm he had done to him in the future. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Alarm, alarm. The former master is high energy, and a life reaction with a combat power of up to 1 billion has been discovered. Please pay attention, please pay attention. After hearing the information from Bigo Star, Kavira did not expect that a randomly chosen planet would actually produce warriors with a combat power of up to 1 billion. Fortunately, he did not provoke this planet when he was active in the southern galaxy, otherwise, he would have been in trouble without Sun Tian's help. But soon, Kavira no longer thought so, because in the transmitted images, those creatures made him fall into memories, Namekians, and there were more than 10 Namekians. Although one of the others had a power reaction of 1 billion, the energy reactions of the other 10 or so people were also frighteningly high. There were more than a dozen strong men with millions of combat power. Thinking of the former Slagu and the great Demon King Piccolo whom he met in the Demonic Empire, even though he had merged with Big Star and became the main brain and could not move, Kira was still angry and wanted to lose his temper. In the battle with Slug that year, although he crushed the opponent with his overwhelming combat power, he was still a loser in the final analysis. Firstly, he did not kill Slug, and secondly, when they had the same combat power, he was almost suppressed by Slug. Kavira had complicated emotions towards the Namekians. Because of Slug, Kavira paid great attention to the improvement of martial arts, which indirectly led to his powerful combat power in the later period. But also because of another Namekian, although it was mainly because of the Saiyan named Sun Tian, Piccolo did cause considerable damage to Kira at that time. He ended up in the state of being neither human nor ghost. Although he gained great power, he could not be free. Even though he was powerful, he was very depressed. Damn it, another Namekian. At this moment, Kavira, with old and new grudges combined, directly ordered Bigo to accelerate its descent. Not long after, Bigo connected with Namek, releasing a strange energy and began to absorb the energy of the planet. The place where it descended was visible to the naked eye, and the surrounding flowers, trees, rivers, and mountains began to change. 1 billion combat forces, right? Then I will send out a force that will make you despair. Kavira was filled with hatred. The mechanical warriors of Bigo Star began to leave the star and sweep the surroundings, inevitably coming into contact with Niru and others. The battle was about to break out. Damn, what the hell is this thing? How can it be so powerful? A Namekian warrior was knocked away as soon as he came into contact with a mechanical warrior. You should know that after assimilation, his combat power was as high as more than 2 million, but in front of the mechanical warrior, he was like a toddler. Be careful, these mechanical lifeforms are too powerful. Combine and support each other. We must not let these monsters disperse. The energy balls kept attacking, but it seemed to be of no use to these mechanical warriors. Finally, one of the Namek warriors destroyed a mechanical warrior with one punch. Don't use energy attacks, their energy defense is too strong, just use physical attacks. It seems that the weakness of the mechanical warrior has been discovered. Although energy attacks are almost useless, physical attacks can still be destroyed as long as they are mastered. The Namekian warriors used their special skills one after another, and saw the mechanical warriors being destroyed one after another. After all, they were just mechanical bodies, and they were far inferior to the Namekian warriors in flexibility. Although they had a powerful energy immune system, as long as they did not use energy waves, the mechanical warriors would be basically useless. The Namekian warriors basically have a combat power of over 200 W, so after they mastered the method, the leading mechanical warriors were quickly killed by more than half of them. At the center of Bigo, Kira watched the mechanical warriors being destroyed one by one, seemingly not caring. Soon the destroyed mechanical bodies were transported back to Bigo. Humph, do you think this is enough? The real fear is beginning now. On Bigo Star, these mechanical remnants were quickly utilized and reassembled. After a while, a new batch of mechanical warriors appeared, but compared with the previous mechanical warriors, they were obviously different. Namek finally destroyed the first batch of mechanical warriors, but before they had time to rest, they found that another batch of mechanical warriors appeared. Although there was no damage in the previous battle, the soldiers were still exhausted. However, facing the newly appeared mechanical warriors, everyone did not even take a rest and immediately threw themselves into the battle again. But as soon as the battle started, it was discovered that this batch of mechanical warriors were obviously much stronger than the previous batch. The mechanical bodies that could have been destroyed before became even more powerful. Damn it, we're going to be exhausted to death if we keep going like this. After much difficulty, they destroyed a dozen mechanical warriors, but seeing that there were still thousands of mechanical warriors in front of them, everyone felt that they might really have to return to nature. Although Neru was able to kill these mechanical bodies, he also had his own opponents. At the beginning, Kira sent out a Metal Kira with a combat power of nearly 2 billion. Neru's combat power is also incredibly strong. Although his combat power is only about 1.2 billion, He uses various secret techniques to forcibly hold back the metal Kuvira in front of him, creating opportunities for other fighters. But now, facing a new batch of mechanical warriors, the other warriors are gradually feeling exhausted. I am afraid that if this continues, some will die. Nelu was extremely anxious. He seized the opportunity and punched metal Kuvira away for several hundred meters. However, he was soon entangled by Kuvira again, and could not support other fighters in the battle. Ha ha ha, Namekians, do you want to save them? Don't dream. Metal Kuvira laughed crazily. Assholes, who the hell are you and why are you invading our planet? Nelu was very anxious and had to fight with Metal Kuvira. What kind of person is this? I didn't expect the Namekians to be so powerful. There was Slug before, Piccolo later, and now you appear. Very good. If you are too weak, what is the meaning of my revenge? In the big star center, Kuvira's brain let out a crazy laugh, and Metal Kira was like his clone, and everything it did was within the perception of Kuvira's brain. Listening to the monster in front of him saying incomprehensible words, Nelu finally understood that the Slug and Piccolo he was talking about should be the Namekians who were sent out during the natural disaster hundreds of years ago. And it seemed that the monster in front of him seemed to have suffered a great loss at the hands of the Namekians. On the other side, without Nail's rescue, the Namek warriors gradually became exhausted. Faced with the tidal wave of mechanical troops, even though they tried their best, they could only destroy less than 1/5 of them. Nairu is being held back by that metal monster. We can only rely on ourselves. There's no other way, let's use that trick. After saying that, several seriously injured warriors looked around nostalgically, wishing Namek to survive the crisis safely, and then they put their hands on the other relatively intact warriors, turned into a ball of life energy, and merged into it. Seeing their companions disappearing before their eyes, the remaining 6 warriors felt grief, but soon turned this grief into the power of anger. Who said that the Namekians love peace? At this moment, the 6 warriors turned into killing machines. After assimilation again, the combat power of the 6 people soared wildly to more than 200 million. Although they did not have time to master this explosive power, they were completely swept by the mechanical warriors with a combat power of less than 10 million. What? What just happened? Why did those warriors suddenly become more powerful? At the Big O Star Center, Kira felt that this batch of new mechanical warriors had all been destroyed and could not even be recycled or rebuilt. He was shocked, but it was just a shock. This batch of mechanical warriors would be eliminated sooner or later. It was just that no one expected that they would be destroyed here. The planet that he thought he could easily deal with refreshed Kuvira's views again and again. Of course, if he wanted, Kuvira could send out a metal clone with a combat power of 20 billion. But this would not be an overreaction. 230 million, 280 million, 350 million, 270 million, 350 million, 270 million. Looking at the data detected by Big O Star, even Kuvira, who already has countless powerful clones, felt a headache. But in this case, he will just play with you guys. The 6 Namek warriors finally destroyed this group of mechanical warriors, but facing the battlefield of 2 billion on the Niru side, they were unable to intervene at all. At this moment, powerful auras suddenly came from the depths of Big O Star. After a quick sense, the number of horses rising was over 1,000, and each aura was over 500 million. Soon the 6 people saw a scene they never wanted to see. A total of 1,500 metal monsters came together. The lowest aura was only about 500 million, but the highest aura reached 1.8 billion. The 6 people's scalps were numb. Even with the lowest combat power, they would find it difficult to deal with it, not to mention the 10 metal monsters with a combat power of 1.8 billion. Could it be that Namek really couldn't escape this disaster? Although they could assimilate again before they fully mastered their current physical strength, even if they assimilated again, the increased combat power would be limited. Otherwise, there would be no need for them to assimilate several times. After all, they were not the Great Elders. If they were the Great Elders, they would be considered the Great Elders' children. Even if they were completely assimilated by the Great Elders, they could quickly become real strength, but they couldn't. Nelu, who was fighting with Metal Kuvira, also discovered the situation here. Even though his combat power was as high as 1.2 billion and his various secret techniques allowed him to fight up to 2 billion, he still felt a headache. Is God going to destroy my Namekian people? Why is this happening? Nelu defeated the opponent in front of him with one blow and quickly gathered with the other 6 warriors. At this time, the Metal Kuvira, who had just fought with Nehru, slowly moved forward. Facing a group of Kuvira, Nehru and his men knew that it might be difficult for Namek to survive the crisis this time. Ha ha, Namekians, I have to say you really surprised me, but that's a lol. Tal Kuvira laughed crazily, as if this could ease the pain in the main brain's heart. Nelu, what should we do? Is God going to destroy our Namekian people? Be prepared to fight to the death, maybe there is still a chance for us to turn things around. Nail thought of the limited chance of survival mentioned by the Great Elder, but no matter what, as the strongest fighting force on Namek today, they would fight to the death to stop the enemy before them. Stupid, can't you see the difference? Or do you Namekians have some other trump cards? Although he knew he had already won, Metal Kura still had countless words to say. This was probably what they called a villain dies because of talking too much. Andromeda, after nearly flight, Vegeta and his party finally arrived at the star field where Namek was located. At this time the crew on the spacecraft reported, "Your Majesty, a fierce battle was detected ahead, and a large number of high-energy reactions occurred, all of which were over 200 million. What's going on? I always have a bad feeling as if something is about to be lost." Piccolo the Great Demon King and Piccolo the God were both heartbroken. Could something have happened to Namek? Oh no, something must have happened to Namek. Go full speed ahead and make sure to arrive within minutes. Yes, Your Majesty. Vegeta and Saitama also felt that something was wrong between Piccolo and the God, but they did not think that something had happened on Namek. For this trip, the demonic empire used the most advanced spacecraft, and the entourage included 2 Piccolo, Vegeta, Saito, and some crew members. They thought it was a simple search for relatives, and did not expect that something unexpected would happen on Namek. In addition, the demonic empire also needed experts to take charge, so Sun Tianxilu and others did not follow. The Magic Empire spaceship was moving at full speed. Its speed was faster than people could imagine. In less than 2 minutes, it entered the gravitational orbit of Namek, and quickly passed through the atmosphere. In less than a minute, Piccolo and his companions appeared on the land of Namek. Southeast direction. This energy is the energy of our people. Yes, Namek, I have finally returned to the place where I was born. God Piccolo and the Great Demon King sighed. Without words, they were indescribably excited. The breath of hometown. This feeling is hard to describe in words. Piccolo and the God looked at each other. Their obsession of hundreds of years was finally fulfilled today. Thinking back to when I participated in the selection of gods in order to understand my origins, even after becoming a god, it was still difficult to get the answer. Think again about how the devil was created with a single thought, and the gods and demons split. The demonic side has been madly ruling the world for its obsession. Haha, I'm back, my hometown. Vegeta came over at this time and said, "Now is not the time to be sentimental. If you don't go over, your people may be wiped out." God Piccolo and Demon King Piccolo returned to their hometown and had not yet recovered from their excitement. When they heard Vegeta's voice, they realized that Namek was in crisis. "Let's go, I seem to feel the breath of an old friend." Vegeta, Saito and the 2 Piccolo quickly took off and flew rapidly towards the battle site. Although the crew members also had combat power, those several thousand points of combat power were completely useless in this kind of battle, so they stayed there to guard the spaceship. Nilu and 6 super soldiers were fighting a group of Kaviras. All 6 of them had suffered varying degrees of injuries. Some had broken arms, some had lost eyes, and some had lost legs. Only Nilu was still holding on, otherwise the other 6 would have died long ago. However, the Kavira troops had not lost a single man, and it seemed that even the strongest Niru could not hold on any longer, and defeat was only a matter of time. Metal Quaidao, whose combat power reached 2 billion, said, "Accept your fate. Although your strength is beyond my expectation, the result will not change. Fight to the death, monsters, don't be so rampant." Both Nail and the other 6 warriors who were obviously wounded were fighting madly. They were the last barrier of the entire Namek. If they fell, the entire Namek would be really finished. Faith supported them, and they would fight to the death even if it cost them their lives. At this moment, Nilu felt 4 powerful auras approaching quickly. The other 2 auras were obviously from the same clan. Although one of them was only about 10 million, the other aura was as strong as 3 billion. Could this be the ray of hope that the Great Elder mentioned? Piccolo and his 3 companions also felt the situation here. To be honest, Piccolo had never thought that his fellow tribesmen in his hometown actually had warriors with a combat power of over 1 billion. Although their aura was weak now, their belief in fighting to the death made Piccolo feel that they had not lost face. In the central area of planet Piccolo, Kira was immersed in the excitement of controlling life and death, and did not notice that his mortal enemies, Lord Piccolo and Vegeta, had arrived on the planet. When the alarm sounded, he had lost the last chance to kill the 6 people of Neru. Lord Piccolo looked at the tragic scene before him and burst into anger he had never felt before. "Everyone, die. Super explosive magic wave. Gather the energy around your body, take yourself as the center and attack indiscriminately in all directions." With Piccolo's current combat power, more than 1,000 Metal Kvaras, except for a few with combat power of more than 1 billion, were all turned into nothingness in this attack. The 7 people of Neru had already been taken away from the attack range by Vegeta. In the distance, the 7 people of Neru felt it was too powerful. More than 1,000 Metal Kvaras were almost wiped out in this one blow. At this time, the god Piccolo came over. "We're late. Fortunately, everything is fine back home. Otherwise, Piccolo and I would have a hard time forgiving ourselves." Nilu looked at the tribesman in front of him whose combat power reached 10 million, and knew that this was the tribesman who had been sent away long ago as the Great Elder had said. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Thousands of words are reduced to one sentence: "Welcome home." In the distance, the surviving Metal Kvara pointed at the Great Demon King Piccolo, angry but helpless. "It's you. I didn't expect you to show up here. It's a good opportunity to settle old grudges and new ones together." Lord Piccolo was very dissatisfied with his own special move. He didn't expect that there were still more than 10 enemies who had not died. Kira, he was thrown into the void by Sun Tian, but he still came out alive. What a pity. Piccolo attacked quickly, and more than 10 metal Kevlars were quickly destroyed, leaving only one. Do you think you've won? These are just my weakest clones. You will soon know what despair is. None of you can escape this time. After I kill you, I will destroy your demonic martial empire. The remaining metal Kira was soon killed by the great demon king. However, just as Piccolo was about to turn around and leave, a voice rang out, "Are you leaving now?" Then several powerful auras came. This was Kevlar's last trump card. 1 metal Kevlar with a combat power of 20 billion, 2 with a combat power of 15 billion, and 4 with a combat power of 10 billion. In the distance, when these powerful auras appeared, Vegeta and Chi Tian said, "Oh no, Lord Piccolo is in danger." As soon as he finished speaking, Vegeta and Seishin disappeared in front of several people, and the next moment they appeared next to Lord Piccolo. Instant teleportation in the demonic martial empire. Besides Sun Tian, Chi Tian can also use it. Today's Chi Tian has a normal combat power of 1 billion and has already entered the 5th level of the ancient ape demon art, the fusion state. Even Vegeta is not Chi Tian's opponent. He has become the second best master of the demonic empire. The key is that Xuan has also reached the level of the great King Kai. Metal Kavira said, "Super Saiyan 2, I didn't expect you to come and die." Chi Tian said, "Hey, isn't this Kira? How did it become like this? Uncle Piccolo, leave this to Uncle Vegeta and me." Piccolo knew that he was no match for Kira at this moment, but he didn't want to kill Kira by pretending to be Chi Tian and the others, so he said, "Okay, but you guys just hold me back, I'll be back soon." After saying that, Piccolo pulled away, and the Kira was as powerful as Piccolo's original energy, but the next moment, Chi Tian directly exploded and blocked the 7 metal Kira's back. "How is that possible, kid?" Vegeta smiled aside. Their target of this trip was not Kavira. It was just a coincidence. On the other side, 2 Piccolo were facing each other. "Are you sure?" In that case, come on, it's time to reunite." Nehru and his companions had no idea what it meant because they didn't know that the 2 Namekians were actually the same person. At this moment, Piccolo's obsession was eliminated, and the gods and demons became one again. Originally one, the fusion of God Piccolo and Demon King Piccolo was not like the assimilation of Namekians. God Piccolo walked directly towards Demon King Piccolo and easily merged into Demon King Piccolo's body. Nilu and the others on the side had no idea what was going on, but at this moment, earth-shaking changes were taking place inside Piccolo's body. In fact, the union of the 2 people does not require one to occupy the main body like the assimilation of the Namekians, because the 2 people are originally one. It's just that after the reunion, their respective experiences merged, the soul became more rounded, and the body became more perfect. At this moment, Piccolo felt as if there was something extra in his body, but he couldn't tell why for a while. As time went on, Piccolo suddenly shuddered, and saw that his originally perfect body suddenly and quickly differentiated into a strong Namekian body. At the same time, Piccolo's soul also felt a pain, and a soul split out directly. As soon as the soul came out, it was directly injected into the strong Namekian body. The sturdy Namekian body, which had no life at all, gradually came to life, and a beam of light shot out. "Where am I? Why do I feel the aura I miss so much? And my body, how come I have returned to my youth? This power feels so strong. No, I remember that I assimilated with a tribe member, didn't I? This sturdy Namekian is naturally Slug." It turns out that after the God Piccolo and the Demon King Piccolo merged into one, Piccolo had assimilated Slug before, which resulted in his body and soul being unable to be round and flawless. Piccolo is naturally a man of courage. He made a prompt decision and expelled the assimilated Slug from his body, and at the same time split out the part of his soul that belonged to Slug. Because of Piccolo, Slug's new body is naturally in a young state. Piccolo has obtained an eternally young body thanks to the DragonBallZ. Because of this, even the already old god Piccolo gradually regained his youth, not to mention Slug, who was assimilated and then split. After expelling Slark's soul and fleshman, Piccolo's body changed again. His body, which was nearly meters tall, suddenly grew taller and reached nearly meters. Although all Namekians have the ability to become gigantic, it consumes their own energy after all. But the taller the height, the greater the potential. Isn't it true that Slug is much bigger than the average Namekian? But even Slug is only about meters tall under normal circumstances. The great elder of Namek, although now old, is still terrifyingly tall. He is 1 meter taller than Piccolo now, and is a full 10 meters tall. After Piccolo's complete integration, his potential increased significantly. Before, although he was improved after assimilating Slug, he was still not as perfect as before. This was the reason why Piccolo could not reach the level of Piccolo in the previous Sun Wukong time and space after practicing for so long. Now, after the unity of gods and demons, Piccolo's aura suddenly increased to 30 billion. This combat power is simply too scary. This is because Slug was expelled from the body, otherwise the combat power would be even more terrifying. but in the long run, without the influence of Slug, Piccolo is now purer and I believe he will become stronger soon. Nelu and the others didn't know what to say. Although Piccolo was a little smaller than the Great Elder, the majesty of the superior made them feel oppressed, just like the feeling when facing the Great Elder. As for the other tribesman, although he was a little inferior to Piccolo, he was still not comparable to them. Slagu was still a little confused and didn't know what happened, but one thing was certain, he was resurrected, and his strength was better than before, and the key was that his old body was rejuvenated. At this time Piccolo had fully adapted to the power of fusion. Looking at the confused Slug, he transmitted a thought to him. I see, ha ha ha. Kira, I didn't expect that I, Slagu, could avenge myself. Knowing his current situation, Slug laughed out loud. You know, Slug's combat power is as high as 10 billion now. Obviously Slug has benefited from Piccolo's union of God and Devil. This may be Piccolo's reward for Slug's initiative to assimilate him. Nelu and the others were also confused. Nelu stepped forward and asked, you guys, what's going on? Piccolo waved his hand and said, let's solve the problem at hand first. By the way, you guys stay here for now. You may not be able to help in the battle later. After saying that, Piccolo and Slug flew towards the battlefield. Piccolo now can be said to have been completely transformed, and even Slug is no longer the same as before. On the battlefield, although the 7 metal Quiras tried their best, for Chi-Tian now, it was like a baby swinging his fist. They had the momentum but no damage. If he hadn't left them to Piccolo to deal with, he would have dealt with them long ago. Impossible. How can you be so strong? I have already obtained the ultimate power, why would I lose to you? Until now, Kevlar has not recognized the reality and thinks that he just lost to Kidian, because the combat power of Kishin detected by Big Oxing is only 20 billion, but he easily suppressed 7 metal Kevlars. There was still a Vegeta next to him who had not taken action, which made Kuvira a little uncomfortable. In Kuvira's eyes, Vegeta should be stronger than Chi-Tian. This was also the reason why the 7 metal Kuviras did not dare to split themselves to destroy other Namekians on this planet. At this moment, 2 super strong energy reactions approached rapidly. When Kira discovered it, it turned out to be the great demon king Piccolo who had left before, but his body shape had changed a lot. Kuvira also recognized the other Namek, Slug, who was the first Namekian who could be treated equally by him more than 100 years ago. Energy reaction, 10.83 billion. Energy reaction, 32.79 billion. In the Big Star Center, Kuvira looked at the data given by Jinao and felt unwell. Although the overall energy of Bigostar may be far more than 350 billion, in fact, the proportion of energy that can be converted into combat output is not very high. For example, now it maintains the previous huge mechanical warrior army, plus the metal Kevlar army. It would have been fine if they could be recycled, but as luck would have it, first they encountered Nelu and his men. Kuvira was too careless and did not send out overwhelming combat force at the first time, resulting in a large number of mechanical warriors being completely destroyed. Then, the metal Kuvira team that was sent out encountered a big move of Piccolo and was killed in seconds. Up to now, the only things that Bigostar can show off are the 7 billion level metal Kevlars that were created with great difficulty by the outside world. Of course, there are also some robots for daily maintenance inside Bigostar, but it is impossible to use them in battle. With the arrival of Piccolo and Slagu, the metal Kuvira 7-man team was in even worse shape. It was already enough to face Chi-Tian alone, and now 2 billion level warriors joined the fray. Although Kuvira has occupied a certain dominant position after the fusion of Bigostar, in the final analysis, the real mastermind is still Bigostar's special computer chip. When faced with an existence that threatens to destroy itself, the entire Bigostar will focus on itself and will not change according to Kuvira's will. For example, now Big Star directly ordered the remaining 7 metal Kuviras to withdraw and start preparing to leave Namek, because the existence they are facing now has the potential to destroy them. Although Metal Kuvira was the most suitable mechanical warrior for combat created based on Kuvira's genetic prototype, and could usually be commanded by Kuvira's brain, at this critical moment of life and death, the special computer chip directly bypassed Kuvira's orders and forced the opponent to teleport out of the battle and return to Bigostar. Damn it, this is a faulty computer chip. Why can't I control it 100%? I can't do anything at the critical moment. In the Bigostar Center, Kuvira's brain was connected by countless components, revealing an angry face, but now everything was useless. Big Star began to slowly move away from the Namek planet, ready to leave the planet at any time. Kishin, what happened? Where is the Kevlar? As soon as Piccolo and Slagu arrived, they found that the metal Kevlar had disappeared out of thin air. Uncle Piccolo, it's teleportation. I didn't expect that metal Kuvira could even teleport. Now they seem to have entered the interior of that strange planet. Chi-Tian himself can also teleport. So the space fluctuations just now were naturally captured by Chi-Tian. At this time, strange planets in the distance began to move away from Namek, and it was obvious that they wanted to escape from this planet. Want to escape? Kishin, please, leave it to me, Uncle Piccolo. Vegeta also came forward at this time, obviously not wanting to miss such a battle. Chi-Tian took Piccolo, Vegeta and Slag to tear open the space and appeared directly inside the big star. Inside the big star, countless small robots were wandering around and suddenly the alarm sounded, "Intruders found, intruders found." Soon Byakuxing's guards rushed in, but facing 4 powerful men with energy levels of tens of billions, it was useless. Saitama and Vegeta were fine, but Piccolo and Slug used their ultimate skills and soon they directly reached the core of the Big Dipper planet. Ha ha ha. You are really courting death by actually breaking into the core. Now even if I don't give the order, Byakuxing will have to deal with you himself. The Kevlar with only his brain left laughed crazily, while 7 metal Kevlars modeled after him served as the last barrier guarding outside the central core. Why do I feel like there's something missing from those metal monsters? Piccolo had discovered in his previous battle that although these metal Kviras were powerful, they lacked a lot of humanity, and were no match for Piccolo and the others. Now although the opponent has 7 metal Kvives with 10 billion energy, which is 3 more than their side, but you must know that except Slug, Piccolo and Vegeta are all super strong people with more than 20 billion energy. Slug, protect yourself. Chi-Tian, Vegeta, let's go. Soon they chose their opponents. Slug faced a metal Kevra with billion energy, Piccolo fought against 3 of them alone, and Vegeta also faced a metal Kevra with 15 billion energy. The remaining 2 were fought by Chi-Tian. Although you are not the real Kvira, you should still remember me. Slug looked crazy. Although he was split apart by Piccolo not long ago, the hatred that had been buried deep in his soul for hundreds of years broke out at this moment. On the other side, Piccolo burst out with all his strength, and the 30 billion energy made the entire Big Dipper star shake. Although the 3 metal Kviras on the opposite side had the highest combat power reaching 20 billion, and the other 2 had 10 billion energy, they were no different from children when facing Piccolo. As for Vegeta, his current Super Saiyan transformation is already infinitely close to the full power of Super Saiyan 2. With 18 billion energies released, he is completely crushed by Metal Kevlar who only has 15 billion. Not to mention Chi-Tian, who was able to hold back 7 Metal Kevlars by himself before, and now he is only facing 2 people, so it is not difficult at all. Except for Slug, Piccolo and the other 2 quickly dealt with their opponents and slowly walked towards the center of Big O Star. How is it possible? Why in just 3 years they have reached this level of strength? Are the ancient Saiyans and Namekians beginning to rise? Although Kavira's brain was connected to Big O Star's special electronic chip, he still had his own thoughts. He felt that except for the Metal Kvira that was fighting with Slagu, the other 6 Metal Kviras had been completely destroyed, which completely subverted his imagination. Boom! The central gate of Big Star was blown open directly, and Piccolo and Vegeta slowly walked into the central core of Big Star. Kavira's brain also appeared in the 3 people's field of vision. Kvira? The 3 of them smiled at each other and many puzzles suddenly became clear. I didn't expect to meet in person so soon. Kavira's brain appeared and looked angrily at Piccolo and the other 2 who broke into the center. Ha ha ha, you're already like this, Kavira. It looks like you haven't learned your lesson from the horror of last time. Vegeta laughed. They had seen a group of Kiras before, and to be honest, they had not expected that only a head was left of the real Kiras. Don't be too happy. Do you think you have won just by getting here? The battle has just begun. The 3 of them were confused. They didn't know what cards Kira had at this time. Did he think that the metal Kvira with only 10 billion energy outside could still turn the tables? At this moment, many metal cables suddenly appeared in the entire core. Piccolo and Vegeta were completely caught off guard and were directly tied up. The next moment, a high-voltage current of tens of millions of volts was generated. Ah, what the hell. The sudden change almost caused Piccolo and Vegeta to be electrocuted, but even so, they were still trembling. Well, no, there's another little ghost? Kvira found that he only caught Piccolo and Vegeta, but the other kid disappeared. Are you looking for me? Chi-Tian's voice came from outside. The next moment, an energy beam directly cut the metal cables binding Piccolo and Vegeta. Impossible. How can you possibly avoid this 40 billion energy constraint? Kvira couldn't believe it. You know, this center can be said to be the heart of the entire Big O Star, and the natural protection measures there are many times stronger than those in other areas. Idiot, don't you understand? This kid's strength has surpassed ours by who knows how many times. Do you think you can restrain him with just 40 billion energies? Piccolo and Vegeta rolled their eyes at Kvira. Although they could break free from the restraints in a short time, they had to admit that even the current Piccolo was far inferior to Chi-Tian. You know, if Chi-Tian bursts out with all his strength, his combat power will be close to 100 billion, which is too scary, okay? These 2 father and son are simply the super perverts of the demonic martial empire. Impossible. Although this kid was very strong 3 years ago, his combat power was only a few hundred million at most. How could it be possible now? When Kira came, he saw Chi-Tian. Although he didn't take action, he could estimate that his combat power was at most 200 to 300 million. However, in 3 years he has grown to this level. Haha, Kira, do you know who he is? He is the son of Sun Tian who exiled you to the void. Vegeta gave Kira a disdainful look. What? That man's son, you mean that man? Kavira will never forget it. Although he thought of going back for revenge after fusing with Big Star a year ago, the feeling Sun Tian gave him at that time was too terrifying. Even though he was able to create Metal Kavira with 10 billion energy levels later, Kavira still kept hiding. But he didn't expect that the originally simple planet-devouring attack would first lead to strong resistance from the native Namekians. Although the combat power of these Namekians was only about 1 billion at most and was not taken seriously by him, it still surprised Kavira. Then Piccolo and his men appeared and directly destroyed Kavira's confidence. They were all preparing to evacuate, but they didn't expect that these people would directly break into Big Star. However, the result was just as predicted by Big Oxing's mysterious chip. It was completely unstoppable, and a feeling of despair grew in Kavira's heart. However, the next moment Kavira was speechless. He saw that the Big Star, which was originally connected to his brain, had actually abandoned him, leaving Kavira's head completely free in the air. Moreover, the entire Big Star no longer provided energy for Kavira, and stopped attacking Piccolo and his party. Kavira, it looks like you've been abandoned. Without the blessing of the Big Star, with only his head left, Kira could no longer be a match for Piccolo and his crew. Haha, I didn't expect that this mysterious chip would be scared one day. In the end, it was all in vain. Even that man's son has become so powerful. I was still fantasizing about taking revenge on that man one day. Fella knew the game was over, but as a former king, he was not someone who could not afford to lose. Seeking revenge on him? You really overestimate yourself. Let me tell you clearly, our current combat power is far inferior to his. He is no longer immortal and is not in the same dimension as us. Vegeta said that only those who have come into contact with Sun Tian can deeply understand his power. Although Vegeta and his companions have been practicing hard, they have always looked up at Sun Tian's back. Give me a quick death. I seem to have seen the end of the gods. If I can die in your hands, I, Kira, will not be considered a failure. Piccolo, Vegeta and Chi Tian looked at Kavira in front of them. To be honest, if they were not enemies, they might really become friends. However, the Ice Clan and the Saiyans and Namekians were destined to be mortal enemies. Let's get going. Out of respect for Kavira, Chi Tian, the strongest of the three, took action himself and turned Kavira's head into ashes. Big Star, I know you have gained wisdom and can understand what we are saying. Piccolo spoke directly to the air, saying that if the Magic Empire could fully understand the technology of Big Star, it would cause an explosion. Therefore, they did not want to destroy Big Star now. Respected strongman, what do you want? A mechanical voice came from the air, indicating that Big Xing had indeed gained intelligence. Submit to our Magic Empire. I believe that with your abilities, you should have learned from the universe how powerful our empire is. And if you submit to us with the technology of our empire, we can even allow you to leave the form of a mechanical body and exist as a human in the future. You know, the technology of the Magic Empire today can be said to be the most advanced in the entire galaxy. If it can obtain technology superior to that of a higher star, it will only reach a higher level. Although the Magic Martial Empire also has similar artificial intelligence, it is still far inferior to that of Gaixing. The entire Big Star gives people the feeling that it has surpassed the scope of artificial intelligence and reached the level of true intelligent life. Facing the conditions, or temptations, offered by Piccolo, even Big Star could not refuse. Since he gained wisdom, Big Star has been thinking about changing his life form all the time. You know, although Big Star's energy has reached a terrifying 300 billion, there are not many that can be used effectively. Usually he can only rely on making mechanical warriors to defend his safety. The reason why he had integrated into Kavira's brain before was only because Kavira was strong enough to barely support his huge energy. Even if an ordinary brain wanted to integrate, it would not be able to withstand the impact of this information. However, facing Piccolo and his crew, his huge energy was completely useless. You have to know that it is difficult for them to truly develop wisdom, but once they have wisdom, they will make choices. Facing Piccolo and his crew, Big Star naturally chose to surrender. A disaster ended here, or rather a farce ended abruptly because of the intervention of Piccolo and others. Soon, Big Dipper descended on Namek again, but this time, he no longer brought disaster. After settling Big Oxing, Piccolo and his three companions returned to Nilu and the others and explained their purpose. Under Nilu's leadership, the group soon arrived at the residence of the Great Elder. The Great Elder naturally knew that the crisis was over, so he asked the other tribesmen to return to their respective villages. When Piccolo and the others arrived, there was only one warrior guarding the Great Elder. Nehru first asked about the well-being of the Great Elder and then said, "Great Elder, do you already know?" The Great Elder slowly opened his eyes. Although he already knew of the existence of Piccolo and others, he still felt incredible when he actually saw them. The Great Elder saw Piccolo and Slagu in front of him and said, "I didn't expect to see the descendants of my former comrades. You must be the descendant of Kadaz. The disaster came suddenly that year and we joined forces to barely send you and another outstanding warrior away." Piccolo and Slagu looked at the Great Elder in front of them, a sense of intimacy flowing in their hearts, and replied, Great Elder. I know what you want to ask. I didn't expect you to have grown to this point. It seems that we Namekians have to fight again. Destiny. Then the Great Elder looked at Vegeta and Chi-Tian who came with him, especially Chi-Tian's unfathomable strength. Saiyans, companions from ancient times, has fate brought our two races together once again? When Chi-Tian and Vegeta saw the Great Elder, they felt that the Great Elder in front of them was very mysterious. He seemed to see through everything, and from what the Great Elder said, it seemed that he knew some things about ancient times. Respected Great Elder, hello. Vegeta and Chi-Tian stepped forward and greeted him. I know why you are here. I have asked each village to send the Shuyuan ball over. Thank you, Great Elder, for your help. Will it be possible? With their current strength, it would only take a few minutes to collect Shu Yuanchu. Not long after, 7 Dragon Balls the size of footballs were delivered. After receiving the summoning spell, Piccolo began to summon the Namekian dragon. Takaraput Borbunga Pirat Paro, come out, God of Dreams. As Piccolo chanted the spell in Namek's language, the 7 Dragon Balls emitted a charming halo followed by a burst of lightning. The sky of Namek, which had never been dark, began to dim. Then the 7 Dragon Balls intertwined, emitting a ray of light that shot straight into the sky. A huge monster slowly took shape, with the same skin as the Namekians and 4 right angles on its head. A divine power was displayed, and even Piccolo and others, whose combat power had reached hundreds of billions, felt that they were so insignificant. Is this the dragon from Namek? It's larger than the dragon on our Earth, but it doesn't seem as graceful as the dragon on our Earth, Chi-Tian thought to himself as he looked at the dragon in the sky. To those who have collected all 7 Dragon Balls, please tell me your wish. Any wish can be granted. I can fulfill 3 wishes for you. Purunga Shenlong leaned down and spoke to everyone. The next moment, Purunga noticed something and suddenly said, "It's you little brats, why are you here?" Sure enough, although the form is different, it is actually the same dragon. Piccolo Kichian will never forget the power of the dragon he saw last time. In a single thought, the world turned upside down. In a single breath, the world changed dramatically. Ancestor Shenlong, it's really still you. Chi-Tian knew that his father had an inexplicable feeling towards the dragon, including the fact that the martial arts they practiced, the ancient ape demonic art, was passed down by the ancestor of the dragon, so he was very respectful to the dragon in front of him with a different expression. You are Sun Tian's child. You have grown up so big. Not bad. You have already cultivated to the 5th level. The dragon is very concerned about Sun Tian, the soul that comes from the same place as him. Chi-Tian, this is all the cultivation of our ancestors. By the way, I asked you to come out this time mainly because I want to ask you a question. I hope you can answer my question. Because the Dragon Balls on Earth were destroyed last time, I came to the universe to find this new set of Dragon Balls. Shenlong, no need to say, I already know a lot of things after seeing you just now. The reason why the underworld sent strong men to the lower world is because your existence has interfered with their divine power, but it doesn't matter. With your current abilities, as long as you don't encounter the true God-level gods, you don't have to be afraid of them. Just do it boldly, Chi-Tian. True God level? Ancestor, how is the strength in this universe divided? Shenlong, as for the division of power in the universe, I can now let you know. Let me put it in the most direct way. The combat power is. As Shenlong spoke, Piccolo and the others learned that the current strength division in the universe was like this. In the strength division in the universe, those with a combat power below 500 are considered inferior. Those with a combat power below 500 basically account for more than 99.99999% of the entire universe. Each planet has its own opinion, but for the vast universe they are considered inferior. Only those with a combat power above 500 are qualified to be called warriors. Those with a combat power of 500 or above can be called true warriors. You should know that on a normal planet, it would be great if there is one warrior with a combat power of over 500. Above this, 500 to 1,000 are primary fighters, 1,000 to 3,000 are intermediate fighters, 3,000 to 8,000 are senior fighters, and 8,000 to 15,000 are top fighters. In the universe, only those with more than 500 fighters can be barely called strong. After all, there are too few races like Saiyans, Namekians, and the Ice Clan that are naturally powerful. In general races, it is often very good to have one junior warrior among hundreds of millions of people. As for the mid-level warrior, if a planet can be guarded by a mid-level warrior, then this planet can basically be regarded as an advanced planet. As for the advanced warriors and top warriors above them, they are the real mainstay. The strong ones above this are called planetary-level strongmen, which means that their combat power reaches 15,000 or above, and they have the ability to destroy small planets. The planetary level is divided into 5 levels. The combat power of the first-level planetary strongmen is between 15,000 to 30,000. The second-level planetary strongmen is 30,000 to 50,000. The third-level planetary strongmen is 50,000 to 80,000. The fourth-level planetary strongmen is 80,000 to 150,000. And the fifth-level planetary strongmen is 150,000 to 300,000. The planetary-level strongmen can be said to be high-level nobles in the universe. The controllers of general forces are also at the planetary level. Of course, even if they are all planetary level strongmen, their combat power is also very different. Only those above the planetary level can be considered true strong people, known as Starfield strong people. The Starfield strong people are divided into 5 stages: early Starfield, 30W to 50W, middle Starfield, 50W to 300W, late Starfield, 300W to 1000W, peak Starfield, 1000W to 2000W, Starfield limit, 2000W to 5000W. Don't look at the fact that there are hundreds of millions of strong people in the entire Milky Way starfield. In fact, in other starfields, there are very few strong people who can reach 300,000. The entire Milky Way starfield itself is very special. I don't know why almost all the strong people in the entire universe gather here. Above the starfield, they are called Emperor-level powerhouses, and are also divided into 5 levels of Emperors: early Emperor, 5000W to 200 million, middle Emperor, 200 million minus 500 million. Late Emperor, 500 million minus 1 billion. Peak Emperor, 1 billion minus 2 billion. Emperor limit, 2 billion minus 5 billion. Therefore Frieza, who had a combat power of more than 100 million before, dared to call himself the Emperor of the Universe. It is often good to have an Emperor powerhouse in dozens of starfields. However, even for an Emperor-level powerhouse, it is difficult to cross the galaxy between starfields, unless you reach the Emperor limit, that is, the combat power reaches more than 2 billion. In addition, the strong men of the gods are at least at the Emperor level, just like the 4 Realm Kings and the Great Realm King in the underworld of the Milky Way. This is why it is difficult for the human world to produce an empire spanning starfields. On the one hand, it will threaten the divine power of the underworld, and the underworld will send the remaining strong men to the lower world to kill them. On the other hand, it is also difficult for an Emperor-level powerhouse to appear in a starfield. Above the Emperor level is the Destruction level, which is also divided into 5 levels: early destruction, billion, middle destruction, billion, late destruction, billion, peak destruction, 100 billion minus 200 billion, limit of destruction, 200 billion minus 500 billion. Once you break through to the destruction level, the universe is so vast that you can basically walk sideways at will, as long as you don't provoke those forbidden existences. Lord Piccolo and Slag are already destruction-level warriors, while Vegeta and Sation, although they possess destruction-level combat power, are actually at an extreme point and cannot last long. They can only be regarded as Emperor-level warriors. Their transformation can only increase combat power to 100 billion at most, and any increase above that will be bound by an invisible rule. For example, the Saiyans, the later they get, the more they focus on normal combat power. The transformation into a Super Saiyan is more to allow the Saiyans to survive better in the early stages. The Saiyan's transformation can be increased by 200 times, which is the limit. That is to say, when the normal state reaches 500 million, unless the life level changes and the power of transformation is continuously absorbed and converted into normal power, billion combat power is basically the ceiling. Above the destruction level is the true top of the universe, the true god-level strongmen who are already able to often hold a part of the authority of the universe, such as the creation of King God, the destruction of the god of destruction, etc., and the true god-level strongmen are also divided into 5 levels: early true god, billion, middle true god, billion, late true god, 30 billion minus 10 billion, peak true god, 10 billion minus 20 billion, limit true god, 20 billion minus 50 billion. When everyone heard Shenlong's division of cosmic power and compared it with their current state, they felt that the road ahead was still long. Qitian: then, ancestor, what level are you at? Shenlong: as for me, you won't understand even if I tell you. I am above a true god, I guess. But this ray of divine consciousness can only exert the combat power of a peak true god at best. Everyone took a deep breath, a wisp of divine thought. The peak of the true god, this is too terrifying. Shenlong: okay, if there is nothing else, just leave. I have told you so much. Oh, by the way, if you can find the Super Dragon Ball that my incarnation left in this universe, forget about dispersing the Super Dragon Ball in 2 universes back then, and wait until you reach the true god level of combat power. Qitian: oh, by the way, can the ancestor help the great elder of Namek to restore his youth? Shenlong: little ghost, in principle it is not allowed, but since you asked, I will help you again. Also, don't summon me if there is nothing important in the future. I am in a critical period now. After saying that, the dragon's eyes glowed red, and it directly reversed the rules of heaven and earth. The great elder's originally shriveled skin quickly filled up at a speed visible to the naked eye and became full again. His body, which was already 10 meters tall, actually grew larger, 12 meters, 14 meters, and only stopped when it reached 18 meters. Moreover, Qitian and others clearly felt that a powerful aura was coming from the great elder's body. Even Piccolo, whose power had reached billion, was far inferior to it. Nilu and the other 7 people were very excited when they saw the changes in the great elder. The elder did not show any emotion on the surface, as if returning to youth or not was no different. But in his heart he was screaming violently. The disaster more than 400 years ago, the mastermind behind that disaster was the Protoss. I'm afraid you can't imagine that our clan has not been wiped out and has once again survived from the abyss. After calming down, the elder said to the Purunga dragon in the sky, "Thank you, respected god of hope. Shenlong, the creator of the DragonBallZ, this is compensation for your clan. Because you were plotted against more than 400 years ago, I was unable to rescue you in time. The great elder, is it the king of the gods? No wonder there were only some destruction-level beings more than 400 years ago. That's why. Shenlong, well, luckily you guys managed to hold on, although the price was too high. As long as you are still here, there is hope. So goodbye." After saying that, Purunga the dragon flashed white light, and soon turned into stone again and disappeared into the air. The god of hope is Shenlong. In ancient times, the Saiyans and Namekians were the main force and joined forces with some other races to resist the rule of the gods. In the end, when the Saiyans and Namekians were almost exterminated, they were saved by Shenlong, who suddenly broke in. Shenlong and the king of the gods at that time were both injured. Before falling into sleep, Shenlong sent the two races into the present universe and taught the Namekians how to make DragonBallZ, which allows the sleeping Shenlong to check the current state of the universe at intervals, and also to satisfy some of the Namekians' wishes. Therefore, on Namek, DragonBallZ are also called Pearls of Hope. You know, at that time the Saiyan race was almost completely sealed. Except for the legendary Super Saiyan who could break the seal when he was born, ordinary Saiyans gradually became ordinary. But even so, super warriors would still be born among the Saiyans at regular intervals. Otherwise, over a long period of time, the Saiyans would probably have disappeared in the long river of history. And the Namekians, thanks to the Pearl of Hope, have been able to evade the pursuit of the gods time and time again. Of course, most of the gods are now asleep, and the strongest ones who can be dispatched are those in the early stage of true gods, and most of the time they are destruction-level gods. The Namekians have been developing slowly and reached their peak more than 400 years ago. At that time there were nearly 20 warriors with a combat power of 10 billion. And the combat power of the Great Elder at that time reached a terrifying 80 billion. However, they were afraid of attracting the attention of the gods, so although they possessed high technology and combat power, they rarely communicated with the outside world. At that time, even the strongest King Kai in the galactic underworld had only about 2 billion. Although the dimension was high enough, it was still far behind the Great Elder. Therefore, they did not realize that the Namekian people had become so powerful. But for some unknown reason, Myers, a member of the Angel clan who was patrolling the lower world at the time, discovered Namek while capturing a powerful demon named Moro. Soon after, a terrible natural disaster befell Namek. The Namekians at that time had no way to deal with the natural disaster, and they couldn't even use the Pearl of Hope. The Namekians, whose combat power reached tens of billions, couldn't break through the atmosphere of Namek and escape. In the end, the powerful people only sent out a few excellent seeds of Namekians, and the other strong ones could only fight. You know, the Namek planet at that time was 100 times larger than the current planet, but after that great change, not only did the planet's terrain change drastically, but the size of the planet was less than 1% of the original. At that time, only the Great Elder of the tribe persisted with his powerful strength, and all the other tribesmen lost their lives forever in that great change. Even the Great Elder was severely injured and recuperated for nearly 100 years before he reluctantly began to slowly transform the planet based on the original planet. As the Great Elder slowly told the dusty history, Piccolo and Slug clenched their fists and Vegeta found it even more unbelievable. More than 20 billion soldiers, and the Great Elder, a strong man whose combat power has reached the late stage of destruction, were unable to save themselves in the natural disaster. No one would believe it if you tell others about it. The only possibility is that there must be a hidden story. Yes, you guessed right. How could a mere natural disaster destroy our Namek clan at that time? At that time, we not only had to fight against the natural disaster, but also had to deal with more than 100 gods in the middle stage of destruction, and an angel in the peak stage of destruction. The entire planet was blocked, and the God of Hope was also stopped. Damn it, damn the Protoss. Nehru and others had never imagined that history could be so cruel. Even though they had been accustomed to peace over the years, a raging fire was ignited in their hearts. The Great Elder, it's enough for you to know this, otherwise the fighting power of the tribe members is still too low. If this gets out, they will panic. Nehru got it, Great Elder. The Great Elder looked at Chi Tian and said, Saiyan, you seem to have taken a different path. It feels to me that your dimension is probably not worse than that of the great king of the underworld. Chi Tian, Great Elder, we are fortunate to have received advice from the ancestor Shenlong, so we have embarked on a different path. The Great Elder, I am so envious of being able to receive the affection of the God of Hope. Chi Tian, because of my father. Piccolo interrupted at this time. I wonder what the Great Elder is going to do next. If you don't mind, can you enter our Magic Martial Empire? The Great Elder, Magic Martial Empire, I understand. I will inform the children. You and Slagu stay for now. Naru, take Kichian and Vegeta to rest. Let all the warriors who have been assimilated come over later. I need to help them eliminate some hidden dangers. Nailu, yes, Great Elder, we will go down first. The Great Elder, Slagu Bik, come here. Although the two were already considered outliers among the Namekians, they were still far inferior to the current Great Elder. The two walked up to the Great Elder and said, Great Elder, what do you want me to do? The Great Elder placed his hands on the two men's heads and said, I have seen your battles before. Although you are very strong now, you have learned many things on your own. Close your eyes, and I will pass on some of our clan's heritage to you. Piccolo and Slug are still very respectful to this elder of their tribe from hundreds of years ago. It is because of him that their tribe has at least preserved the fire until now. After a while, a lot of information appeared in Piccolo and Slug's minds, including combat skills, magic, and even how to reproduce without dying. Although they could not fully understand it in a short period of time, they believed that after learning it completely, their strength would definitely be improved. As for the reproduction group, although Piccolo and Slug could spit out eggs directly and give birth to monsters before, they are different from real offspring after all, because they do not have the correct method. If they want to give birth to offspring, they have to give up themselves and evolve a new self, just like the Piccolo in the Monkey King time and space that they have visited before. The old Piccolo consumed his own life, and before he died he passed on the essence of what he had learned in his life directly to his new self. The Great Elder, okay, I have passed on everything that should be passed on to you. From now on, our clan will still need to work together. Thank you, Great Elder. If there is nothing else, we will leave first. The Great Elder, go. The underworld was unaware of the Big O incident that occurred on Namek, because during this period, the four kings were preparing to unseal the Metroid warriors, and the Grand King was trying to find a way to contact the Divine Realm. After more than a month of preparation and communication, the four kings finally reached an agreement with Bojack, the leader of the Metroid warriors. The kings will lift the seal, but the Metroid warriors must help the underworld deal with the Demon Empire. Of course, the kings of Kai were not very optimistic about the Metroid warriors and did not reveal the true strength of Vegeta and his gang. They only said that this was an emerging force, and that the strongest had a combat power of about billion, which was at the beginning of the middle stage of destruction. They also promised that as long as the Metroid warriors helped to eliminate the Demon Empire, they would allocate an area in the southern part of the Milky Way to them as their territory. Bojack and his gang are not stupid. You know, when they were causing trouble, the warriors from the underworld caused them a great loss. Not to mention anything else, the underworld martial artist who was in the middle stage of destruction at that time alone, caused them a lot of trouble. You know, Bojack and his four subordinates are all destruction-level warriors, and Bojack is in the middle stage of destruction. If it weren't for the entanglement of that martial artist in the middle stage of destruction, although the four realm kings have good combat power, it is at most about 600 to 800 million in the late Emperor stage. Even if various secret techniques are added to them and they can exert the combat power of the early stage of destruction, they are at most equivalent to his four subordinates. Originally, Bojack and his companions wanted to kill the four kings of the realm directly after the seal was lifted, but the four kings of the realm were not stupid. Naturally, they would involve Porkchop Rice in this desperate attempt. Intimidated by Porkchop Rice, Bojack and his companions had to give up their thoughts. In addition, after the seal of the four realms was lifted, the strength of the four kings of the realms recovered, and they were not so easy to kill. It would be a tragedy if Porkchop Rice restrained them, and then they were sealed by the four kings of the realm. You have to know that they have just come out of the seal and their strength has not yet recovered to its heyday. It is not a wise choice to turn against the underworld now. After the four realm kings reached an agreement with Bojack and his gang, they returned to the underworld. Although they have recovered their strength, who knows how many powerful people there are in the world now? The demonic martial empire is now like a mountain, pressing down on them. King Kai of the North. Alas, I wonder if the great king of the North has contacted the God Realm. If he can invite that person, the demonic empire will be nothing. East Kai King, God Realm, does God Realm really exist? Among the four King Kais, except for the North King Kai, the others did not believe in the existence of the God Realm. It was only when the North King Kai met the god of destruction Beerus by chance that he realized that there was such a terrifying existence above the Grand King Kai. The thought of Beerus's terrifyingly powerful strength was enough to make him realize that there was such a terrifying existence above the Grand King Kai. North King Kai, of course the Divine Realm exists. I'm not afraid of you making fun of me. Of course the Kai planets of the four of us King Kais are all of the same size. You know, even we would find it difficult to destroy it. The other three kings said, yes, you have been keeping silent. Is there something wrong with it? North Kai, god of destruction, a god far superior to Great Kai. With a single wave of his hand, my planet Kai was destroyed, leaving only its current size. Hiss. The other three kings took a deep breath. In the northern part of the Milky Way on a desolate planet, Bojack and his crew were worrying about this matter. Having just been unsealed, they knew very well that things were far from as simple as King Kai said. You know, the strong man who followed King Kai at that time was definitely in the middle stage of destruction, and even Bojack in his prime might not be able to suppress him. But the underworld, with such a powerful combat force, actually released them. a group of evil people who once brought disaster to the galaxy. It is conceivable that there must be strong men above the middle stage of destruction in this demonic martial empire, otherwise it would be impossible to force the underworld to do so. Bojack, Peter, what do you think? Peter, the tallest of the four, replied, Master Bojack, I think the underworld must be hiding something. Bojack, yes, there is something weird about this, but now that we are out, this demonic empire will be an obstacle to our domination of the universe. Buchan, boss, the most urgent thing is that we must recover our strength first. After being sealed for tens of thousands of years, our strength has been greatly weakened. Zangia, yes boss, the four of us now only have the combat power of the Emperor's limit. Although it is very strong, this demonic martial empire is obviously not like what King Kai said. The strongest is only Billion. Bidu, who was carrying a sword on his back, also said, yes, no matter what, when the four of us recover to the destruction level, plus your mid-destruction combat power, even if the demonic martial empire is a dangerous place, we will be able to make it. Bojack, you're right. The most urgent thing is to restore our strength as soon as possible. As for this demonic martial empire, let's ignore it for now. It's a pity that our Galactic Legion was completely destroyed by those bastards in the underworld in that battle. Peter, King Kai and his guys want to use us as pawns. Bojack, do you really think we've become stupid after being sealed away for so many years? Humph. Being able to become destructive level powers and dominate the galaxy, Bojack and his crew are naturally not brainless people. Therefore, after being released from the seal by King Kai, they did not rush to find trouble with the demonic empire, but lay in lurking. Bojack today has just come out of the seal and has only the strength of an early stage of destruction, which is about 8 billion. You must know that in his prime, he had a combat power of a mid-stage of destruction, which was as high as 15 billion. As for the four subordinates, they didn't even have the combat power of the early stage of destruction left. After all, they had to maintain their own consumption for tens of thousands of years. Now they still had the combat power of the Emperor's limit, which was already very strong. The limit of Emperor Zangia is 3 billion, the limit of Emperor Peter is 3.5 billion, the limit of Emperor Buchan is 3.2 billion, and the limit of Emperor Bidu is 3.8 billion. Under normal circumstances, this force can sweep across the galaxy, but now, things are weird everywhere. After confirming, Bojack took his four subordinates directly to a secret place left behind when he traveled across the galaxy, preparing to restore his peak combat strength before making any plans. Poor four kings of the realms, they thought they had already reached an agreement with Bojack and his crew, but they were stood up. I wonder how they felt. In a certain area of the southern Milky Way, on a twin planet, a group of slaves are working hard, while on the other side of the planet stands a modern technological castle. This castle has a large number of scientific and technological talents. If Vegeta were here, he would find that the owner of the castle has a fluffy tail like them, and he is also wearing the combat suit of the Frieza era. Baracus is the real owner of this castle. It is impossible for him to achieve this with his fighting power, but he has a son who is ridiculously strong. The key is that this son has been under his control since he was very young. Ambition increases with the power controlled. Although Baracus's combat power is only less than 20,000, his son is ridiculously strong. Broly, the Saiyan who was born together with Sun Tian, had a combat power of 10,000 when he was born. It was because of this that King Vegeta knew that the legendary figure had appeared when he learned about it. But that was when Frieza had just made up his mind to destroy the Saiyans. Frieza's spaceship was about to land on planet Vegeta, and according to records, although the legendary Super Saiyan had increased in strength, it was easy for him to lose his mind. Therefore, before Frieza's arrival, Broly was exiled to a remote planet in the southern Milky Way. On the one hand, they were afraid that Broly's growth would threaten the rule of their royal family. On the other hand, in the next battle, even before the Super Saiyan grew up, it was easy for him to die, leaving a spark for the future of the Saiyans. But Baracus didn't know what King Vegeta was thinking. He thought that King Vegeta was afraid that Broly's potential would threaten their rule after it grew up, so he stole the spaceship and went to look for his son. Of course, because of this, they were lucky enough to avoid Frieza's killing and slowly grew up in the southern galaxy. At that time, Frieza's forces were mainly distributed in the northern galaxy, and although Kavira was active in the southern galaxy, Broly and his men were located too remote, so they were lucky to survive. As Broly grows, his combat power becomes stronger and stronger. At the age of 1, he has reached a combat power of 10W. When Broly is 5 years old, his combat power has reached a terrifying 3 million. Moreover, Broly's growth seems to have no limit. However, Broly has a fatal problem, that is, once he starts fighting, he can easily lose his mind. Baracus was also very distressed by this. Later, after continuous attempts, he finally found a way to effectively control Broly's combat power with the help of a group of scientific and technological talents. In this way, Broly could effectively maintain his sanity in every battle as long as he did not exceed that limit, and would not be overwhelmed by the power. From then on, Baracus's ambition began to sprout. With Broly as his trump card, he continuously invaded planets. At the beginning, because he was on the edge of the southern galaxy and there was a Kavira, Baracus acted relatively cautiously. Because Baracus found that once Broly used more than 500 million combat power, it would be easy to get out of control. Their technology once detected that Kavira's combat power had reached a terrifying 600 million, so they tried to restrain themselves as much as possible. But a few years ago, the forces of Kavira were suddenly divided into several factions fighting for territory with each other, and the life reaction that reached more than 600 million has disappeared. After continuous research, coupled with Broly's rapid growth, Broly can now control stronger power and stay awake. This made Baracus's ambition begin to swell, and he felt that the time for him, Baracus, to rule the galaxy has come. However, with the power he controls now except for Broly, he has no strong people to show off, to put it bluntly, except for Broly and Baracus, who can be ignored. The highest combat power of the entire Baracus group is only about 5,000, which is not up to par at all. Therefore, Baracus set his sights on the central area of the southern Milky Way. The four great kings had just returned to the underworld, hoping that the great king had already made contact with the divine world. But at this moment, the South King suddenly discovered that dozens of planets in the area under his jurisdiction had disappeared. North Kai King. South Kai King, what's wrong? You don't look right. South King, it seems that something went wrong in the area under my jurisdiction. Dozens of planets with life have turned into cosmic dust just when we released Bojack and his crew. East Kai King, who did this? South Kai, we are investigating. We have found out. What, another Saiyan? What's going on? King Kai of the North Saiyan, has the demonic empire already extended its hand to the southern Milky Way? King South, no, not the Saiyan from the Demon Empire but someone else. Although not as strong as Vegeta, I just felt that his combat power should be around 1 billion. King of the West, it's really annoying. Now that we have recovered our strength, let's solve it ourselves for just billion. South King Kai, oh no, another planet with life has been destroyed. Damn it, what happened to this world? Just now the combat power of this Saiyan suddenly increased to billion. King Kai of the West, stop talking. And King Kai of the North also began to investigate himself. Suddenly King Kai of the North trembled, and his entire face turned blue. King Kai of the East, what's wrong King Kai of the North? This is not the time to tell jokes. King Kai, can't you investigate for yourself? Can't you sense that this Saiyan has not used his full strength? The fighting power hidden in his body is too terrifying. In the center of the southern galaxy, Baracus is going crazy. Baracus, Broly, stop now. We are here to subdue these people, not to let you destroy them. Broly, father, these people are too weak. I don't even need to transform. Why should I collect them? Suddenly Baracus took out a controller. Broly was frightened when he saw it, but Baracus did not notice the helplessness hidden in Broly's eyes. A powerful electric current stopped Broly in his tracks. Even though Broly did not transform, his combat power reached nearly 500 million. However, he was actually trembling under this electric current. An electric current of over 100 million volts is too much for even someone as strong as Broly to handle. In the underworld, when the four great kings saw this scene, they did not expect that this man with a combat power of only about 20,000 was actually the father of another Saiyan, who terrified them all. But it's true, the four kings are at such a high level, why would they care about this kind of trash with a combat power of only? If it weren't for this guy named Broly who kept destroying planets, they probably wouldn't have noticed the existence of these two people. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. Although Baracus and Broly had conquered many powerful men, the strongest one could only barely reach 100,000. However, he received an important piece of news. Frieza is dead. The demon who once ruled the entire Saiyan nation was killed by a Saiyan named Vegeta several years ago. It is rumored that Vegeta can actually transform into a Super Saiyan, and the magic empire he belongs to is full of powerful people. This poses a serious threat to Baracus, who is determined to rule the galaxy. No, we have to find a way to get rid of Vegeta. But Broly is getting harder and harder to control. What should we do? Baracus always believed that it was King Vegeta who failed him and his son in the past, and never thought that if King Vegeta really wanted to kill them, with his combat power of, even with Broly, who was still an infant and had a combat power of 10,000, could he really escape? Baracus, Broly, come on, follow me to the demonic empire. At this time Broly was in his normal state, looking a little dull with a restrained aura. His combat power was about 5W, and he wore a circle on his head that restricted his combat power. Broly, yes father. However, at this moment, the entire planet shook, as if it was attacked by something. Baracus, what's going on? Who is so bold as to attack our headquarters planet? At this time a frog-headed alien stepped forward, half knelt on the ground and said, Lord Baracus, it's bad. Several extremely powerful forces suddenly appeared on our planet, and all the warriors we recruited before are dead. However, before he could finish his words, the frog-headed alien was hit by an energy beam through the heart and fell to the ground. Too weak. With this little strength they still want to dominate the universe and call themselves the Baracus Empire. It's ridiculous. A voice came from not far away, and a turbaned, blue-skinned spaceman appeared in the air, and behind him followed 4 spacemen of the same level. Who else could it be but Bojack's group? Bojack and his group came to the southern Milky Way to recover their strength, but one day, an energy bomb suddenly fell from the sky. If they had not recovered about 80% of their strength, reached the destructive level, and had the ability to survive in space, they would probably have hidden directly in the universe. Later, after making some inquiries, they learned that there was an empire called Baracus in the southern Milky Way, and the strength of the strong men in it was nearly 2 billion. Therefore, after fully recovering, several people went straight to the door, but they did not expect it to be so vulnerable. The strongest guards had only about combat power, which was not enough to qualify to join their galactic legion back then. Baracus, you, who are you? Do you want to be our enemy? Bojack, oh, you two are a bit powerful. Are you the leaders of this empire? One is a mid-level warrior, and the other is a high-level warrior. You can barely join our legion. Because Baracus has been with Broly for a long time, his combat power has barely reached W, but after all, he is not like Broly who can freely restrain his aura. Broly usually maintains a combat power of 5W. At this time, Peter on the side seemed to have discovered something and said, "Boss, look, they have tails, they look like Saiyans." Bojack took a look and didn't really pay attention at first, but now he realized that the 2 people in front of him were actually Saiyans. Although he didn't know what the relationship was with the Saiyans of the demonic empire, if they were Saiyans, he had to be careful. You have to know that they had encountered Saiyans in their time. Although most Saiyans had not much combat power, a few of them could change their combat power by transformation. However, it was not in the Milky Way starfield at that time, but in another starfield. At that time, they fought with a transformed Saiyan. The Saiyan had a golden aura, and lightning surrounded his body. Even he was at a disadvantage in the battle with him. In the end, the 5 of them joined forces to fight to a draw. Finally, they connected their way through the starfield and entered the Milky Way starfield, which started their road to dominance. However, the good times did not last long. Soon they were sealed by the underworld strongmen and the 4 kings of the world, and have not reappeared in the world until now. Of course, what they didn't know was that it was because of them that the Saiyans in that starfield were discovered by the gods, and later one of their groups fled to the Milky Way starfield along their own path. Bojack, you're a real Saiyan kid. I can sense a hidden power in you, but you're no match for me. The kid was naturally talking about Broly. Although Baracus has a combat power of 2W, when it comes to Bojack and the others' level, they naturally know that's just how much. Baracus, Broly, release your energy and teach them a lesson. Baracus naturally didn't know that any one of the 5 people in front of him could beat Frieza back then. He thought that they were just arrogant people with some abilities. After all, not everyone is like Broly. In the final analysis, Baracus had ambitions, but he didn't have the vision to match them, so he was destined to achieve nothing. As for Broly, after Bojack and his gang showed up, his body was shaking the whole time. It was not because of fear, but because of excitement. You know, the enemies he faced before were too weak to arouse his interest. If it weren't for Baracus, Broly would not have bothered to take action. A hidden power slowly erupted from Broly, 10W, 20W, 100W, the aura soared all the way until it reached 200 million. Bojack, is that all your strength? Even though you're just entering the Emperor level, it's not bad. However, the next moment, Broly's aura suddenly increased, and a grass-green aura emanated from his body, with his hair standing on end. Although he did not transform, his combat power had reached the peak of an emperor, with a combat power of 2 billion. Peter, how is that possible? He's already at the peak of the emperor before he even transforms. If he transforms, won't he be even stronger than the Saiyan we met back then? At this time, Baracus was so scared that he couldn't stand steadily. You are looking for death. You angered Broly like this. Baracus, Broly, stop now. You can't increase your energy anymore, or you will lose your mind. However, Broly seemed to have not heard anything and stared at Bojack. As for Peter and the other 3, they didn't take it seriously at all. Bojack, interesting. I didn't expect to meet a strong man like you before we go to deal with the demonic empire. Come with us, the strong shouldn't be bound. Bojack naturally noticed that something was wrong with Broly, and also saw the restraint in Baracus's hand. This guy with such frighteningly low combat power in front of him actually intended to control a master at the peak of the emperor level, which was simply an insult to the strong. The underworld's great King Kai planet. Recently, the 4 King Kais have not returned to their own King Kai planets but gathered together. When Bojack and Broly faced him, the 4 King Kais also discovered it. King Kai of the South, oh no, how come Bojack and his group are fighting against that Saiyan, East King? The Saiyans are not good people. With Bojack's strength, he should be able to destroy them easily. King Kai, it's hard to say. Now this Saiyan named Broly has a combat power of 2 billion before he even transforms. It's a troubled time. King Kai of the West, humph damn it. Bojack and his gang actually didn't keep their promise. They'd better all die. During this period, the great King Kai has been busy communicating with the God Realm. But it's as if the God Realm does not exist and he can't get in touch with them no matter what. The cause of this series of events is the Saiyans. King Kai of the West now gets angry whenever the Saiyans are mentioned. On the star in the southern Milky Way, Bojack looked at Broly in front of him and thought to himself that if he could let this man join them, they would at least have one more help in dealing with the demonic empire. During this time they have investigated some things, but the more they investigated, the more surprised they were. As far as they knew, the Saiyan named Vegeta was actually a strong man in the middle stage of destruction. In addition, the Emperor of the Demon Empire, Lord Piccolo, although he claimed to have only 10 billion combat power, no one knows if it is true. Moreover, it is rumored that there is an even more mysterious existence. Bojack and his gang wanted to kill King Kai. How could they be so deceiving? That's why even though they have restored their strength to its peak through their previous secret base, they didn't immediately go to the demonic empire. And some time ago, one of their secret base planets had been destroyed by that damn Baracus Empire, so they came to them now after coming out of isolation. Although this so-called empire is a bit unworthy of its name, they didn't expect that it hides a super strong man. Broly, follow you? Who do you think you are? As Broly's combat power increases, he is no longer as dull as before but full of violent aura. Peter, boy, don't be ungrateful. After saying that, Peter released his aura. Peter, who had recovered to his full strength, had a combat power of 7 billion. Even at the early stage of the destruction level, it was an extremely strong existence. The combat power displayed by Broly was only the peak combat power of the Emperor. Maybe it was the influence of Peter's aura, or maybe Bojack's words angered Broly's self-esteem. With a loud shout, Bro's hair began to change slowly from black hair with a hint of blue to grass green. His aura also surged, reaching a terrifying 8 billion. Peter, what? Impossible. Broly, ha ha ha. I haven't felt this kind of power in a long time. As a reward, I will send you to hell. Peter, stop looking down on people. After saying that, Peter attacked Broly directly. Although they were both in the early stage of destruction, facing the legendary Super Saiyan, Peter had no idea that it was completely different from the Saiyan he encountered that year. Boom! Peter punched Broly in the face, and a trace of blood slowly flowed out of Broly's mouth. Before he had time to taunt him the next moment, Peter himself was also a villain, but Broly's performance made Peter shudder. This punch did not knock Broly away. Broly just tilted his head slightly to neutralize Peter's full-strength attack, then stuck out his tongue to lick the remaining blood. Broly, ha ha ha. Is this what it feels like to be hurt? Not far away, Baracus was so scared that he didn't know what to say. When Broly transformed, even if Baracus pressed the controller, it would no longer have any effect on Broly. It's bad, we're all going to die. You don't even know what you're facing. Bojack and the others did not take Baracus' words to heart. Although Broly looked terrifying now, it was only in the early stages of destruction. Peter, boy, the next attack won't just cause you to get hurt. However, just as Peter was about to attack again, Broly moved. Even Peter could not see Broly's figure clearly. When Broly appeared again, Peter only had time to hear a mocking voice. Die, trash! Then the body was pierced directly, an arm was inserted into it, and blood slowly flowed out from the chest. Tick, tick. How is it possible? We are both in the early stage of destruction. Why can't I even withstand your attack? Peter couldn't believe that he would die so miserably. With his heart pierced, Peter didn't hold on for long before he gradually lost his breath. Bushin, what? What just happened? Zanga, Buchin, and Bidu were horrified. You know, the four of them were almost the same in strength, but they didn't see Broly just now. They only knew that Peter was pierced through by a punch and died on the spot. Baracus looked like he knew this a long time ago. Now only Bojack could see Broly's movements clearly. In that instant, Broly more than doubled his speed, and then punched Peter 3 times in a row, directly piercing him. Bojack, Zanshi Buchin, control him. Bidu, prepare your strongest sword power. Bojack had to be careful. He had no time to save his subordinates in that instant, and watched helplessly as they died. They finally escaped from the seal of the King of the World and had recovered to their peak, but they didn't expect to lose a member in this inconspicuous place. Zanja and Buchin immediately stood on both sides and cooperated with each other. An invisible force acted on Broly, and Broly suddenly felt that his breath seemed to be sealed. Bidu drew out the sword on his back and poured all his energy into it. The sword, which was originally an ordinary sword, now exuded a sharp sword energy. Bidu, take my attack. The chi and the sword merge into one, a sword that defies the heavens. When Broly was in trouble, Bidu seized the opportunity, became one with the sword and soared into the sky. Baracus, no, Broly, be careful. Although Broly is more of a tool in his mind, at this moment, Baracus actually had the illusion that he was about to lose his son. As if feeling the threat from Bidu, Broly roared, and his already swollen muscles swelled again. Zanga and Buchin were sweating profusely, and they used all their strength to control the seal. In an instant, Bidu's attack arrived, and Broly was in danger. Roar, roar, roar. At the critical moment, Broly's aura increased again, and in an instant, Zanja and Buchin's seals lost their effect. Die. Ha 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 ha, bunch of ants. Broly simply blocked Bidu's attack with one arm. Bidu, what? Impossible, this is my strongest move. It can severely injure even a mid-stage destroyer. Crack. Bidoo's sword broke directly, and only a shallow white mark appeared on Broly's arm. Everyone was horrified. How could this be possible? Even Bojack didn't dare to use his arms to block Beerus's sword head-on, but the Saiyan in front of him. Bojack seemed to have returned to the feeling of powerlessness when facing the Saiyan covered in lightning. Back then, they had attacked together as 5 people from the beginning, and that Saiyan was obviously worried about something, otherwise they would have died that year. Bidoo was dazed for a moment, but between the strong, every second means life and death. As a legendary superhero, Broly naturally has outstanding fighting talent and will not miss such an opportunity. At the moment when Bidoo lost consciousness, Broly threw 5 consecutive punches, and Bidoo, whose combat power was as high as 7.5 billion in the early stage of destruction, was directly blown up and turned into dust in the universe. Baracus, great, Broly, quick victory. Broly turned around and looked at Baracus, almost scaring him to death. Fortunately, he then focused his attention on Bojack. As for Xandra and Butchin, Broly completely ignored them. Bojack, who are you and why are you so strong? Broly, haha, rubbish. Broly then rose into the air, his aura rising again. Bojack, don't look down on me. You've only just entered the middle stage of destruction. I don't believe you can handle the 3 of us at the same time. Then, Bojack, Xanshi and Butchin surrounded him and kept attacking with air bullets. However, Broly ignored them and a protective shield appeared outside his body, and his aura kept changing. Strength, this is the strength. I feel my body can be even stronger. Roar, roar, roar. As the aura exploded, the space where Broly was located continued to break and then repair itself. No matter how Bojack and the other 2 attacked, they couldn't even break the protective shield. Bojack looked like he had seen a ghost. Monster. How could there be such a monster? Zanjia and Butchin were so frightened that they lost their ability to move. The violent aura completely eliminated their desire to resist. Finally, Broly's breath stopped and he slowly calmed down. Broly, monster, haha, I can finally control this powerful force, but in return, you will go to hell. At this time, Broly's body was surrounded by lightning. His grass-green hair looked so violent, and his eyes, which had long turned white, also returned to normal. It's unknown when Broly recovered from his madness, and the restraining ring on his head that was originally used to restrict his aura had long disappeared. Bojack looked at Broly, who had regained his composure, and a bad feeling emerged from the bottom of his heart. Unmatched, late stage of destruction. Yes, Broly's Super Saiyan 2, coupled with his terrifying super physique, has reached the late stage of destruction, with a combat power of 80 billion. Bojack panicked and completely lost the will to resist. They were totally on a different level. With his current combat power of only 15 billion facing Broly's 80 billion, he had no power to resist at all. It was thought that Keishin would rule the galaxy again after coming out of the seal this time, but unexpectedly, even after recovering to his heyday, he didn't even encounter the people of the magic martial empire, but encountered a super monster. Bojack, ha ha ha, I never thought that I, Bojack, who has been so successful all my life, would die here today. Broly, Bojack, I know you. Because of you, our tribe was discovered by the gods and I had to choose to reincarnate once every 1,000 years. I didn't expect that this awakening was also because of you. It's really cause and effect. In this case, I will give you death. Broly finished speaking, and violent power surged out, and 3 compressed energy balls hit the bodies of Bojack and the other 2. There was no resistance. Under Broly's locked aura, they were unable to resist. Bojack and the other 2 were turned into nothingness. Broly suddenly looked up at the sky, and this look immediately woke the 4 King Kais from their shock, and they immediately lost the ability to observe Broly. In the underworld, the 4 kings looked at each other and laughed bitterly. North King, too scary, the dimension is at least higher than the Great King. The East, South and West interfaces smiled helplessly. What's wrong with this lower world? Why do such abnormalities always appear in the star region under our jurisdiction? The 4 of them were speechless for a while, expressing great pressure about the future. At the center of the southern galaxy, Baracus looked at Broly and didn't know what to say. Broly, father, let go of your unrealistic ideas. Although Broly restrained his breath, he did not return to normal. His grass-green hair looked so weird. The fact that he could control Super Saiyan 2's power so easily was obviously far beyond the level of Vegeta and the others. However, Broly could see a sense of agelessness in his eyes, which was totally inconsistent with his age. Baracus listened to Broly's voice, and although he still called him father, he no longer had the same feeling as before. Although he didn't know what Broly had discovered, everything could no longer go back to the way it was before. Broly slowly closed his eyes, feeling the powerful force in his body. He was also recalling his reincarnation experience over the past tens of thousands of years. He didn't know if his old friends were still alive. It turned out that in the past, because Bojack and his crew were rampant in the universe, the Saiyans were killed by Bojack and his crew during an outing. You should know that since the Battle of the Ancient Gods, Saiyans have been scarce, and among the people who were killed at that time, there was a legendary Super Saiyan, who was less than 10 years old at the time. Because they were afraid of attracting the attention of the gods, they only sent a Super Saiyan in the middle stage of destruction to hunt down Bojack and his crew. Unfortunately, Bojack and his crew also had a strong man in the middle stage of destruction, and with the assistance of 4 early stage of destruction, they barely resisted the attack of this Super Saiyan, and Bojack and his crew were chased and fled into the Star Domain River. However, this battle eventually attracted the attention of the Protoss, and they sent a true god-level strongman to lead dozens of Protoss in the destruction period to directly encircle and kill the Saiyans. At that time, the Super Saiyan in the middle stage of destruction had to return to the tribe to resist the attack of the Protoss, which gave Bojack and his crew the opportunity to enter the Milky Way starfield. In that battle, the Saiyans who were already badly injured suffered another blow. At that time, there were 3 Saiyans who were at the limit of destruction. However, in order to hold back the Protoss who was in the early stage of True God, they eventually blew themselves up and died together with him. The other Super Saiyans who were at the peak of destruction had to lead a group of them across the galaxy and hide again. Broly was one of the tribes at that time. He led his people to escape into the present-day Milky Way while being hunted by 5 destruction-class gods. The Milky Way at that time was sealed at a great cost by the underworld hundreds of years ago because of the rampant Bojack and his gang. Therefore, Broly did not attract the attention of the underworld. After all, Broly's dimension at that time was far above the great King Kai. But 5 other destruction-level Protoss also chased after him, and Broly had to try his best to kill a destruction-limited Protoss with his peak destruction power. The other destruction-level Protoss in the late stage of destruction self-destructed when they were unable to complete the task, severely injuring Broly, forcing him to use the Millennium Reincarnation secret technique that only a Chuan Chao could use, and constantly be reborn in the cycle. This is also the origin of why among the Saiyans in the Milky Way, there is a legendary Super Saiyan who appears every 1,000 years. However, a characteristic of the legendary Super Saiyan is that as the combat power increases, it is easy to lose reason. Therefore, Broly left an ancestral precept before his reincarnation that if a baby with a combat power of tens of thousands appears in the tribe at birth, he must be exiled to avoid posing a threat to the tribe. In this way, Broly reincarnates once every 1,000 years, but perhaps because the gods left a mark on him, every time he breaks through to the destruction level, he will be activated, and then a stronger destruction level god will come to hunt him down. Without regaining his sanity, he has to infinitely strengthen his own energy, and eventually his physical body collapses and he enters reincarnation again. In this life, if it were not for Sun Tian and others who released Bojack and his gang from the underworld and accidentally made Broly feel threatened, and if it were not for Baraka's ambition, which controlled Broly's growth, forcing Broly to focus on the growth of his physical body, and if his physical body had grown to the point where it could withstand his explosive growth of energy, Broly himself would probably have been suffocated to death by this explosive energy before he could kill Bojack and his gang. In a sense, Baraka's did a great thing. Now that Broly can regain his sanity, it is a stimulus for Bojack and his crew. On the other hand, Baraka's little plan also indirectly helped Broly. Although Broly is still far from recovering to his former peak combat power, the moment he regained his sanity, he had already eliminated the mark of the gods lurking in his body. Broly muttered to himself, in the late stage of destruction, my body in this life is still a little bit worse, not even half of what it was at its peak. You have to know that Broly had a combat power of 160 billion at his peak. Even at the peak of destruction he has gone very far. Moreover, after going berserk that year, he directly killed a god whose combat power of destruction limit reached 250 billion. However, with nearly 100 reincarnation experiences, Broly believed that it was not impossible for him to break through to the true god level in this life. After all, Broly's reincarnations were not in vain. In the current dimension, he had already broken through to the true god level. As long as he persisted in practicing and his body was healed, breaking through to the true god level could be said to be a natural thing. Once he breaks through the true god level, with Broly's fighting talent and his pure royal blood, I'm afraid that even ordinary angels from the angel clan among the gods will not be able to do anything to him. You must know that the angels in the god clan are extremely powerful. They are born with the combat power of the peak emperor level. Naturally, when they grow to maturity, they will have the combat power of at least the late stage of destruction. Even the people of the god clan's G-Core clan, except for the Shi lineage, are basically not their opponents. The gods are mainly divided into 2 major races. One is the angel race. The angel king is a powerful being above the true god. Now one of his clones has turned into the Omni King. The original body is sleeping because of the ancient battle with the dragon, and both sides were injured. But even if it is just a clone, it is extremely terrifying. Even a strong being like the high priest who is at the limit of the true god can only be inferior to him. The other race is the Kaioshin, which is mainly divided into 2 types. The Kaioshin lineage that controls creation, and the Toki lineage that controls time and space. Although the Kaioshin lineage is not strong in combat, it has mastered the ability to create. Of course, there are also very few Kaioshin with very strong combat power. The Toki lineage is transcendent and supervises the entire universe and time and space. Its special ability is something that even the angels dare not say they can resist. The true God realm is a world above the God realm where the angels live. Virginie, the angel who was responsible for the suppression of the Saiyans tens of thousands of years ago, suddenly discovered that after 1,000 years the mark of God reappeared, but disappeared the next moment. Virginie is an angel who is not valued. His combat power is only at the peak of destruction, which is about billion. Over the years, he was the one who went down to the mortal world every time and forced the Super Saiyan to self-destruct, so he is very concerned about this matter. The lifespan of the angels is very long. Even if they don't break through to the true God level, they can still live for tens of millions of years. Virginie has lived for 1 million years now. With such a long life, she always has to find something to do, but she is not interested in cultivation. This is because Virginie, who has reached maturity, has only the peak of destruction. The combat power of 120 billion may not be a big deal in ancient times, but after the ancient war, not only did the Saiyans and Namekians suffer heavy losses, but the angels, as the main war faction, also suffered heavy losses. Now the true God-level strong men of the angels are either in seclusion to recover from their injuries, or sent to the lower world to assist and monitor the God of destruction. Moreover, even among the angel clan, there are not many angels who can truly break through to the true God realm. It is easier to cultivate combat power than to comprehend the laws. Among the angel clan today, except for the angels sent to the lower realm to assist and monitor the God of destruction, there are only about 50 angels who have reached the true God level in the entire world. And most of them are only in the early to middle stages of true God. The strongest is of course the current high priest, the angel of the true God limit realm, but he usually has to assist the Omni King in managing the only remaining 12 universes. And generally he rarely goes to the lower realm unless there is something major. The angels who can go to the lower world to assist in monitoring the God of destruction are at least true God-level angels. You must know that in order to become the God of destruction of a universe, one must at least be a strong person with the limit of destruction. Finally, the angels in their universe will report to the High Priest, and finally the Omni King will make a direct decision, granting them destructive energy, allowing them to control certain laws of destruction, and thus be promoted to the pseudo-true God level. Pseudo-true God level means that the laws of true God level are not comprehended by oneself, but are bestowed by the Omni King. They are weaker than the real true God level strongmen, but far stronger than the extreme destructive strongmen. Although the God of destruction seems to hold the power of the universe, it is more like a means of the gods to protect God Kai, because once he becomes the God of destruction, his life will be connected with God Kai. And once God Kai dies, the God of destruction will also perish. You know, although the King of Kai controls creation, his own combat power is not strong. The strongest is only at the middle stage of destruction, and the average King of Kai only has the combat power of an emperor. Neither the Angel Clan nor the Time Kai King Clan have the time to manage the lower world, so it is generally managed by the Kaioshin Clan, but the Kaioshin Clan is too weak, and some very powerful races occasionally appear in the universe. Therefore, once they appear, the Angel Clan will let them take on the power of destruction on the pretext of helping them advance to true gods, thus making them a nanny similar to the Kaioshin lineage. Therefore, in fact, after becoming the God of destruction, many of them will recreate a realm of destruction god to correspond to the realm of the God of destruction, so that they can rescue the God of destruction in time when the God of destruction is threatened, but also avoid being annoyed by seeing the God of destruction. What's more, some are afraid that the death of the God of destruction will lead to their own destruction, so they simply seal the God of destruction and leave some trainee God of destruction. As for the Angel Clan, they don't really care about God Kai. If it weren't for the face of the Time King Kai lineage, how could God Kai, whose strongest strength is only in the middle stage of destruction, enter their field of vision? Therefore, they just let the God of destruction do this. As long as the God of destruction doesn't mess around, they generally don't care. Destroying the God realm, Beerus no longer worried about his life being threatened after he sealed Potoro Old King God into the King God's sword. At that time, Beerus's martial arts talent was so strong that he reached the limit of destruction in just a few hundred years. Later, he was chosen by the angels, given the original energy of destruction, and became the God of destruction of the seventh universe. But because of this, Beerus has often used sleep to comprehend the law of destruction for millions of years. Although he is now infinitely close to the true God realm, he has never broken through. Everything has gains and losses. If he had not accepted this destructive energy, with Beerus's talent, he would probably have broken through to the true God realm long ago. Of course, if he did not accept it at that time, he would probably be sealed or killed on the spot. After all, if he successfully broke through to the true God realm, he would be a threat to the current gods. Virginie used her power to descend directly to the realm of the God of destruction. At this time, Whis, who was serving or monitoring the God of destruction, was enjoying the delicious food. Weiss, Virginie, you should practice hard, don't come to the underworld for no reason. Virginie would descend to the mortal world every 1,000 years or so. Wiz of course knew that she came for the Legendary Super, but Legendary Super's secret method of 1,000-year reincarnation was too against the will of heaven. Even for him who was in the late stage of true God there was nothing he could do, but Virginie enjoyed it. Every 1,000 years, as long as Broly broke through to the destruction level, she would descend to the mortal world to hunt him down. Therefore she was familiar with Whis Virginie. Hey, is this god of destruction still sleeping? It looks like he didn't fulfill his duties. Although Beerus is much stronger than Virginie, Virginie is from the angel family, so she is unhappy every time she goes to the mortal world. Wiz, it should be our fault. After all, with his qualifications, if he practiced normally, he would have broken through to the true god realm long ago. By the way, why did you come to the mortal world? Did that Saiyan come back to life again? Virginie, not sure, I felt the divine seal appear but then it disappeared. Wiz, maybe you're overthinking it. Decades ago the tribe that Saiyan belonged to was wiped out by the Frozen Clan. I think without the tribe, even if it's a legendary Saiyan, it will be difficult to revive. Decades ago, Beerus woke up and went down to the mortal world, passing by planet Vegeta. Later, Whis discovered that the planet was inhabited by their enemies. So he asked Beerus to use Frieza, a member of the Ice Clan at the time, to destroy the Saiyans. There are countless starfields in the entire 7th universe. Even if Whis is an angel in the late stage of true God, it is impossible for him to focus on the Milky Way starfield at all times. Therefore he has not known about the changes in the Milky Way starfield until now. Virginie, I'd better go down there myself. It feels a little weird this time. I hope I'm just overthinking it. Weiss, it's up to you. With your strength, although you are not the strongest in the tribe, you should have no problem dealing with those people in the lower world. Lord Beerus here should wake up in a few years, otherwise I can go down to the lower world to see what's going on. After all, Weiss still doesn't feel comfortable leaving Beerus, a time bomb, here alone. God knows what will happen when he comes back.